talking about fine art photography, and I think we have to realize photography as art has much in common with other art forms like painting or drawing or sculpture. And the four principles of fine art apply to all art mediums. And photographers oftentimes don't recognize what these four principles are and how they can enhance the work that they produce. So if you're conscious of these four principles and you apply them to your work will be more concise. You will make work that's more art-based and not as accidental. The one we're going to talk about today is symbolism. The principle we're going to discuss today is symbolism. Now, symbols can be colors, like red is symbolic of blood. Sometimes it's symbolic. We put it in flags, so it might be part of the symbol of a nation. We have animals that can be symbolic, like a lion is symbolic of strength. We have animals that we incorporate into our symbols for nations, countries, states. We have words that are symbolic. Words are symbolic. And sometimes the way things are arranged make them symbolic. So symbols become very important in our lives, and they can help tell a story in the photographs that you make. The first photograph I'm going to show you today is one that I call Ascension. Now, ascension has something to do with a story in the Bible. I believe an artist is the sum of their experiences to a great degree. I was raised in a Christian church, and because I was a Christian, we had this story of Christ who was crucified on a cross, and after he was crucified, he was taken down from the cross and he was entombed. When they opened the tomb a few days afterwards, his body had been taken by angels to heaven. And that was called ascension. And that's what this photograph represents. So, the cross is represented by the feathers in the shape of a cross. And the feathers also represent the angels that are taking Christ to heaven. And at the bottom of the photograph, you see the circle of thorns, which represents the crown of thorns that had been placed on the head of Christ when he was crucified. So we have all these symbols in the photograph that represents the ascension of Christ to heaven. And that's why I named it Ascension. Now, I believe in telling people how the photograph was made. So this one was made simply by, again, sandwiching the feathers between two pieces of glass and then setting it vertically in a little apparatus that I've made for this purpose, and putting a piece of frosted acetate behind the feathers and the glass assembly, and projecting an image of the sky, because Christ is being, going through the sky as he's ascended to heaven. Now, of course, I made the crown of thorns out of branches from a rose bush that I soaked and bent in a circle, but I didn't need to see the whole circle, just part of it. And of course, it was lit. So I light my photographs. I'm very conscientious about how my photographs are lit. The next photograph I have here that I want to show you is these baby shoes. And there are other toys around the edge of the photograph. Now these have to do with my images being visually poetic. And there's a little poem that I wrote to go with this photograph, is that your childhood may fade, but it'll never die as long as you leave space for it in the corner of your mind. So the baby shoes are very clear, and the other toys appear to be fading out around the edges of the photograph. Well, there's a way I got them to fade out by using multiple exposures. So there are basically 4 different exposures. If it was a 10-second exposure, each exposure was 2.5 seconds. Now, I didn't click the shutter to make the multiple exposures. What I did was I turned the light in my studio on and off, and the light would, and then after I turned the light off, I would remove some objects and I'd turn it back on. And then I turn it off again and I'd remove some objects and I'd turn it back on. And the camera shutter was open for the entire length of time that this exposure was made, because the multiple exposures were made by the manipulation of the light, not by clicking the shutter on and off. And at the end of the total time, the shutter was just closed. I hope that's not too confusing. The next one is a very simple image. It's clamps, a C clamp, and a black ball, and a white glove. The symbolism here, I don't want to tell you what the symbolism is. I think if you look at it, you can figure it out. So the parts are there that will help convey the meaning of this photograph. The last picture I'm going to show you is a torn flag that is being stitched back together. I think you can probably figure this out if you see the needle and the thread and the flag has been torn. And the idea of this is I live in a nation where there is political division that appears to be ripping our country apart. And we need to stitch it back together. I had to buy 3 or 4 different flags to find one that would rip properly, because most of the flags now are made out of some kind of synthetic material, and when you rip them or try and tear them or cut them, it doesn't give you the ragged edges. So I had to find a flag that was cotton, so that when it was cut or ripped, you would see the ragged edges, because that became important for the look of the photograph. I also had to wash the flag to make it a little bit more, not so polished, a little bit more rough, and to make the threads a little more ragged on the edge. And I cross-stitched so it was easy to see the stitches so that you would get the point of the photograph. So you can see there was a lot of work involved in all of these photographs, and that's one of the things that happens if you are conscientious about making photographs that are art, is you will consider what you need to do to bring that image to fruition. So we're going to leave this here. And if you like this, give it a thumbs up. You can follow me. I will be on Instagram. And I do have a website if you want to check out my website. So I hope to see you in the future.